camera says no.
Halt was the first to recognize that a relatively large number of pioneer plant communities give way to a comparatively small number of relatively stable communities. He saw everything in the environment. He noted how some stable communities coming up to replace the old communities. So he introduced this concept of succession while seeing the new or stable communities or climax community that replaces old communities. Succession is the process of changing the structure of an ecological community over time. The time scale can be decades or even millions of years after a mass extinction due to some disturbances. Many species not there. We lost many plants, herbal plants also. Many animals are not there. Succession may be initiated some of disturbances such as from a lava flow or a severe landslide or some form of disturbance of a community such as from a fire, severe wind through. So many natural calamities play a role to destroy some species. The community begins with relatively few pioneering plants or animals and develops through increasing complexity until it becomes stable or self-perpetuating as a climax community. Okay, it is the process. We can't lose the species immediately. It will take decades or even millions of years after a mass extinction due to the disturbances. The disturbances include lava flow or a severe landslide or fire or severe wind through. Anything can result succession. The community begins with relatively few pioneering plants or animals and develops through increasing complexity until it becomes stable or self-perpetuating as a climax community. Ecosystems are constantly changing. Ecological succession is a gradual process of change and replacement of the types of species in a community. Yes, it is said it is a gradual process only. One more question. It is a gradual process of change and replacement of the types in a community. Each new community makes it harder for the previous community to survive. Yeah, it gives threats for the previous community to survive. Okay, many people told many things about this succession. Health first initiated the concept of succession to understand the nature very well. The French naturalist A.V. La Malle was the first to make use of the word succession concerning the vegetation development after forest clear cutting. Yeah, we will cut the forest but we can see growth. So he introduced the word succession concerning the vegetation development after forest clear-cutting. In 1859, Henry David wrote an address Thoreau wrote an address called "The Succession of the Forest Trees", in which he described succession in an oak pine forest. He noted succession in an oak pine forest. The Austrian botanist Anton Kerner published a study about the succession of plants in the Danube River basin in 1863. Yes. Now we heard four names. Everybody owned in the respective field. Characters of ecological succession. There is a progressive increase in the total matter of community. We can see sudden increase of the species. There is tendency for increased nutrient conservation, a slow loss of nutrients. Increased nutrient conservation as slow loss of nutrients. Slow loss of nutrients but increased nutrient conservation. Number of trophic levels increase. Primary consumer, secondary, tertiary. We can see number of new trophic level. Population of decomposed component becomes significant. All ecological succession. Community become more diverse in terms of number of species and the balance. We can see many new species. It tells the replacement of old species because of succession. The community become more heterogeneous. Simple food chains will be replaced by complex food chains. Simple food chains will be replaced by complex food chains. Okay, we can see new growth, we can see new trophic level, and we can see increase of total number of species. We can see increased nutrient conservation as slow loss of nutrients, and simple food chains becomes complex food chains. Community fully becomes heterogeneous. Everything tells the existence of ecological succession. Impact of ecological succession. We can say heterogeneous, but we can see the impact on human beings. Ecosystems are continually changing and reorganizing. Every time we can see changes in the ecosystem. Ecological succession refers to the orderly changes in the composition or structure of ecosystem. Effects on human beings. Plantation of a garden is an example. The process of ecological succession immediately begins in the disturbed ecosystem. The plot is rapidly invaded by plant species called weeds, which are well adapted to freshly tilled lands. Weeds are undesirable because these compete with plants for nutrients, water, and space. So the consumers also suffers because of loss of nutrients. So when you see new growth, especially weeds, it will take all nutrients from the soil. So all consumers get less nutrients from the soil because of ecological succession. The colony stages. initial stages, intermediate stages, climax community. We can see bark, lichens, annual plants, perennial herbs, grasses, shrubs, shade shade tolerant trees. We can see everything. The same diagram is drawn again with its respective phases. Primary succession begins with barracks, ends with bushes. Secondary succession begins with plants and grasses and ends with forest. Now we can't see any barracks. We can see plants, grasses, bushes. We can see plants from the rocks. Similarly, secondary succession, we can see big forest. We can't see shrubs and small trees, bushes that were occupied the same place previously. Here we can see many processes in the succession. Nudation, it is a development of bare area without any life form. Invasion, successful establishment of one or more species by migration or dispersal leading to establishment or species. These are called pioneer species. Okay. Invasion, successful establishment of one or more species by migration or dispersal leading to establishment or ecosis. These are called pioneer species. Next one, competition and co-action. As the number of individuals increase, there is a competition for space, water, nutrition. The competition is interspecific or intraspecific. In nudation, we can see bare area formed by landslides. Reaction, the living organisms grow, use water and nutrients from substratum having strong influence on the environment which is modified to a large extent is reaction. The living organisms grow, use water and nutrients from substratum having strong influence on the environment which is modified to a large extent is okay. When we see succession, we can see processes interrelated. Stabilization, the succession ultimately culminates in a stable community called as climax, which is in equilibrium with environment. For succession, new sites are needed. In India, we can see new sites to continue succession. Succession won't happen immediately. It will pass through some stages. We can say it as nudation, invasion, competition and co-action, reaction, stabilization, nudation. It is a development of bare area without any life. We noted in this figure landslide how it causes nudation. Can we able to see the screen? Okay, Santosh. A invasion, successful establishment of one or more species by migration or dispersal leading establishment. Competition coaction. As the number of individuals increase, there is a competition for space, water, nutrition. The competition is interspecific within different species or intraspecific within the same species. Then we can see a reaction. The living organisms grow, use water and from substratum having strong influence on the environment, which is modified to a large extent, is reaction. Stabilization: the succession ultimately culminates in a stable community called as climax, which is in equilibrium with environment. When one plant or any species is replaced by other species, we need new sites. In India, it is available by nature. Alluvial deposits: these include deposits of sand, gravel, and by flowing rivers and rivulets. Canoe estuarine deposits: these are formed by the deposits of sand and silt by estuaries that extend inland from sea coast. Sand dunes: these are huge deposits of sand that occur along the seashore, banks of rivers and lakes, and in the desert areas of the world. Here we can see succession. These sites are formed by landslides and are very good sites for succession because the soil contains humus and mineral nutrients and water is also available. Freeze: these are found in cold places and rarely form good sites. Erosion: bare areas are also produced by erosion and such sites are abundantly available all over India for secondary succession. The volcanic action and fire: these two natural catastrophes destroy vegetation and create bare areas that become available for recolonization or secondary succession. Glaciers also create new sites, but such areas are rare in India. Volcanic action and fire and glaciers. In India, it is difficult to see glaciers. Okay, succession means how new species continue to survive while replacing the available or old species in the same site. We can see succession in any place, even in desert, we can see succession. It is applicable to all land types. There are two types of ecological succession: primary and secondary. Primary succession is the process of creating life in an area where no life existed earlier. Secondary succession is the process of restabilization that follows a disturbance in an area where life has formed an ecosystem. Creating life in an area where no life existed earlier. That is primary. Secondary succession means destabilization that follows a disturbance in an area where life has formed an ecosystem. A primary succession begins in a place without any soil, such as volcanoes, landslides, flooding. First lichens that do not need soil to survive grow on rocks. We can see lichens on rocks. Next, mosses grow to hold newly made soil, known as pioneer species. We can see lichens, then we can see pioneer species. We know soil, the plant grows in the soil of rock is not suitable, we know, but still we can see growth of lichens and mosses. Okay, we can see lichens on rocks. We can see most plants on rocks that not rooted deep. It has life. Root only decides life of the species. Less root gives less life to the species. An example of an area in which a community has never lived before would be a new lava or rock from a volcano makes a new island. Okay, one more question. Area in which a community has never lived before would be a new lava or rock from a volcano that makes a new island. Soil starts to form as lichens, and the forces of weather and erosion help break down rocks into smaller pieces. Weather and erosion help break down rocks into smaller pieces. When lichens die, they decompose, adding small amounts of organic matter to the rock to make soil. Simple plants like mosses and ferns can grow in the new soil. The simple plants die, adding more organic materials, nutrients to the soil. The soil layer thickens and grasses, wildflowers, and other plants begin to take over. Shrubs and trees start growing in that area. Even simple plants die that can add more organic materials to the soil. The soil layer thickens and grasses, wildflowers, and other plants begin to take over. Shrubs and trees start growing in that area. Insects, small birds, mammals begin to move into that area. What was once bare rock now supports a variety of life. This is an example of primary succession, how species came from the rock. For dune, a part of system of sand dunes on the side nearest to the sea, a beech maple forest is a climax messy closed canopy hardwood forest. In ecology, a messy habitat is a type of habitat with a moderate or well-balanced supply of moisture. We can see first sand, from we can see fir dune community like grass, then shrub, pinewood, oak. wood and beech maple forest. A primary succession starts with bare rock and ends with big forest. Here new growth in the place where no light is expected. Next is about secondary succession. Secondary succession occurs on a surface where an ecosystem has previously existed but not available. It is the process by which one community replaces another community which has been partially or totally destroyed, might be by natural process such as flood, earthquake, etc. Okay, we know some natural calamities that will take the life of the species in any place. After these calamities, we can see new growth in species. When an existing community has been cleared by any type of disturbance such as fire, cyclone, etc., and the soil remains intact, the area begins to return to its natural community because these habitats previously supported life. Secondary succession begins. Yes, you can see mature hardwood forest from annual weeds. We can see the growth in the place now replaced by hardwood forest. We can see different types of species in different span of years. In the first year, we can see annual weed. From 2 to 4 years, we can see annual and perennial weeds. From 5 to 15, we can see pine seedlings and saplings. 25 to 50 years after cultivation, we can see young pine forest. 150 years after cultivation results mature hardwood forest. Examples of secondary succession: deer forest fires at Yellowstone National Park. The Yellowstone fires of 1988 was the largest wildfire in the recorded history of Yellowstone National Park in the United States. Starting as many smaller individual fires, the flames quickly spread out of control with increasing winds and drought and combined into one large fire. Only the arrival of cool and moist weather in the late autumn brought the fires to an end. A total of 7,93,880 acres of the park was affected by the wildfires. Because of the fire, we can see new growth. So this is known secondary succession. We can see some pictures taken when the fire destroys forest. Okay, but we can see new growth after the fire. Now the weeds look like this after 1 year of the fire, forest fire. After 10 years, we can see shrubs. After 20 years, we can see many trees. Okay, we can see comparison between primary and secondary succession. The primary succession can start on terrestrial or aquatic environment which were devoid of any vegetation previously. No vegetation in that land. Organisms that established there first are called pioneers or primary colonists. The initial or pioneer community gradually develops through a number of stages or series to form the final or climax community. Secondary succession refers to a succession in which already existing dominant plant community is replaced by another plant community. Removal of past vegetation may be caused by natural or human disturbances such as soil erosion, fire, earthquake, etc. Thus, although the area becomes devoid of living matter, its substitution is not primitive. Okay, I like to stop here. So, in simple words, we can say begins with life, whereas in secondary succession follows removal of existing biota. No soil is present in primary succession. Soil is present in secondary succession. Primary succession starts with bare. New area example volcanic island is formed. Old area example following a bushfire. Lichen and moss come first. Seeds and roots are already present. Biomass is low, biomass is higher. The circle of life in secondary succession: disturbances, grasses, shrubs, small trees, climax forest. The grasses that move in as pioneer species are often thought as weeds. A first plant in the bare rock is weed; the subsequent growth of shrubs are considered undesirable bush. We can see bushes. But without these intermediate stages, the disturbed habitat can't return to forest. So we need these intermediate stages. We must recognize that any ecosystem could be subject to massive external destructive forces like fires and storms that could reset and re-trigger the successional process. As long as these random and potentially catastrophic events are possible, succession will not stop. Okay, unless until we see random potentially catastrophic events, we can't stop succession. Will continue. We can see new growth of plants that can replace the older plants. We can see good form of trees. We can say it as big forest or climax forest. Okay, we can question how do humans affect ecological succession? Clearing the land for garden and preparing the soil for planting is a type of major external event that radically restructure and disrupt a previously stabilized ecosystem. The disturbance may immediately begin a process of ecological succession. So gardening, clearing the land to prepare the soil for planting, everything results restructure and disrupt a previously stabilized ecosystem. We can see new growth after the cultivation. The simple topics, you can understand what is succession. We can see different types, and we can see some processes in the succession. It won't happen immediately. It starts with mutation. Remember the processes in association with succession, invasion. Okay, how one species or more species migrate and establish their network in the area. Competition and co-action, we can see fights for their survival. and reactions because of the competition. Living organisms grow, use water and nutrients from the substratum, having strong influence on the environment. That is modified to a large extent. Okay, that is reaction. They can grow, but that is modified to a large extent. This transition is nothing but reaction. Stabilization, we can see sufficient number of new growth is called stabilization or complete growth of plant is called stabilization. We try to remember the area where we can expect succession and the differences between primary and secondary succession. Okay, that's all. Okay, thank you all.